Today's video is all about site visits, and we're going to be going on two specific individual site visits. The first of which is at an older home. It's about 100 years old, and it's in Greensburg, Pennsylvania. We're going to be meeting up with the realtor there so that we can talk about the condition the home is in and if it's suitable for our clients to restore. The second visit today is out at a lot that we've recently cleared. It's for a custom home that I've designed, and we're going to be checking for the driveway cut-in and the view corridors. We want to make sure that we're going to be siting the home appropriately. We were actually out there 3 weeks ago before anything was cleared, and we walked through the woods with the builder and our clients. And so we're going to be updating the clients with all of that information. Our first stop of the day is actually in downtown Greensburg, and we're going to be stopping to get some coffee and to do a little bit of paperwork. And so I picked out a coffee shop here called the White Rabbit Cafe, and we're going to get started, get prepped for our first visit of the day, and then we're going to head over to that house. So the realtor just texted me and said that she's there already. So we didn't get quite as much work done at the coffee shop as we hoped to, but that's all right. We'll get a jump on this. So I'm parked up here on Academy Hill, and just over there is the Westmoreland. It's a American art museum that's absolutely fantastic. I think it's one of the best examples of architecture that this town has to offer. And the home that we're going to be looking at is actually just up on the other side here. So we're in pretty good location to check this out. And I really wanted to point this out. If you're ever in this town, definitely make a point to stop by and check out this museum. Don't want to forget that. Now, the goal of an architectural site visit is to assess a project, no matter what phase it's in. This means going out and assessing the work completed or the work to be completed based on the project goals. Now, this project being one where we've been contracted by a client to review a home and see if it's worth them purchasing it is a little different than a project that might be already under construction. For this project, we're assessing if this home is characteristically sound, meaning that all the architectural character that makes this home what it is still in there, like historically thinking. And then also we want to make sure that it's structurally sound and it's not a money pit. We understand the cost of construction, but we also understand the cost of design associated with that construction, and we want to be able to meld the two to be able to give our client a good interpretation of whether or not this home is worth purchasing. As we move up the porch here, I'm assessing the structure of the porch, and I'm realizing it's in rough shape and is probably going to have to be torn off. We're also addressing the brick, making sure that it's still structurally sound. And it looks like on this right-hand side that we actually have a lot of issue with the mortar joints. One of the nice things I noticed about the front of the house was that the original full-light entry doors are still intact, and that was a very, very cool thing to see. But it looked like they were blocked, so we're gonna have to go around here to see what's going on. I've just gotten here and I went up to the front door, but I wasn't sure where I should meet you. Sounds good. Thank you. Bye. As I got in touch with the realtor, she informed me that the rear of the home was actually the entry door. At this point, they have the front blocked off to kind of stop anybody intruding into the home. As we walk around, I'm assessing the structure, the exterior structure of the house. I want to see what that facade looks like, and we want to understand what's going on. We're noticing that a lot of the mortar has been worn away over time, and then we have efflorescence, which is that white substance on this brick. That's when water has soaked this brick, and as it evaporates, salt deposits are left behind. So that's telling me that there has been a lot of water damage, or at least a lot of heavy water at those areas on the rear of the home. Hopefully we don't see that corresponding to the interior. As you can see, we have the drone up and we're looking at some of those eave edges. We have a pretty good size soffit up there, and that's because we have integrated box gutters. That green outline, which is actually a copper gutter that's patinaed, think the Statue of Liberty in New York, that is what our gutters are. And then they go down to the downspout. This house actually sits on a double lot, and then next door was formerly a home that had been torn down. Now the city or the local land bank actually owns that property now. Also on the rear of the home is a parking pad. I wanted to address that with the realtor, and I was asking her if there was a foundation ever, or if there was ever a building that was there, and she informed me no, that there wasn't. It was just built up parking pad. With homes like this, especially of the time period, there would have been a carriage house in the rear of the home for horses, and then eventually the early adaptation of the automobile. Heading into the kitchen here, you can see a lot of plaster cracking, a lot of deterioration in that plaster. We have servant stairs that go up to the left, and then another set of stairs that go down into the basement just next to that. And then off to the right, we have what is the butler's pantry. It's kind of an odd location for that. And you'll notice that there's a lot of plaster missing, and that's indicative of water damage. We saw a lot of that efflorescence on the outside of the house right in that same corner. But we also have the bathroom. There's only a single bathroom, and that's above that butler's pantry on the second floor. Heading into what's probably the formalized dining room of the time period, and we'll notice that there's a lot of paint peeling from the walls and the ceiling, but there's not a lot of actual damage. I would assume that that paint is peeling because of the humidity in the air and not because of actual water damage. We also have this really beautiful leaded glass window, but sadly, I believe it's beyond repair because there's a lot of the glass pieces that are missing, and you'll need that to actually repair this. The lead is also warped. Panning across the room, we also see a lot of ornate detailing where you would expect to see a crown molding. A Victorian home of this type, you would normally expect to see that, but this one doesn't have that. It's the first time I've seen these in lieu of crown molding. We also have actual working pocket doors that are still accessible, which is very nice to see. Off to our right here, we also have an entrance into the foyer from the dining room, and then moving into our receiving room, or what would be a modern living room. We also have that lack of millwork in this space as well, which is very interesting. These time period homes would normally have millwork. This one has more decorative elements rather than that millwork, which is very interesting. It's the first time I've ever seen this. As we pan across, we'll still see a lot of that peeling paint. It doesn't worry me too much. It's really indicative of a moisture problem in the air, more of humidity than it is actual water damage. The fireplace actually matches the other fireplace, so it looks like this may be original, so that's good to see. And then on that right-hand side of the fireplace, we do have water damage. So that is something that would have to get investigated further. But the floors look good. Overall, the decorative elements of the home are pretty nice. We still have access to those pocket doors. They haven't been sealed away or removed completely. And it looks like this side needs to get loosened up or readjusted, but our left-hand side here is still fully operational, which is great to see. Moving into the foyer of the home, we have a lot of millwork here, which we don't have or we don't see anywhere else throughout the home. It's really nice to see that this was preserved. There are some things about the balustrades that look like they've been replaced with the wrong types of elements, but that's pretty easy to replace. If you have some of the existing elements, you can take it to a millwork shop and they'll replace it for you, and or at least be able to recreate that for you. And we also have a grate in the floor. This is a metal grate, and it's not something you see very often, but it's actually a cold air return. It allows air to move throughout the house and the heating system to operate effectively. Now, if you were to upgrade to a more modern HVAC system, you could eliminate that. As we pan away from that and the millwork on the stairs, we'll see that we have a seating area or a receiving area, and this is also very highly detailed. It looks out onto the porch and beyond. It looks like we have some water damage there. The plaster is starting to pull away from the walls a little bit. Something we'll have to explore on the outside. If those gutters aren't working right, that could be allowing water to come down those walls and then actually evaporate into the house. Off to the right of that, we have our front entry. This acts as almost like a vestibule. You'll see where there used to be hinges installed along the wall there. This is something that's more indicative to the Northeast than it is to Southern homes of the same time period. That would act as a rudimentary way of preventing hot or cold air from escaping the home, depending on the season, but it would also act as a secondary buffer zone for safety. We also see that there is very nice woodwork throughout that space, and I'm glad to see that wainscoting in that area as well. Before we head upstairs, I want to take a look to see what's going on with the closet. It looks like some of that wood has swollen, so you will have some adjustment to make sure those doors still fit appropriately. But we also have an entrance, which would have been a servant's entrance into the basement or the kitchen off of the entry foyer. Now headed upstairs, you'll see we still have some of that ornate design as we come up, but it stops at the landing. And then we'll see a lot of plaster peeling away. Some of the balustrades are completely missing. So we do have a lot of work that would need to be done on that landing and on that staircase to bring it back up to what we expect out of a house like this. And then we have 3 bedrooms on this floor. We have a master bedroom that is actually fairly large. It sits directly above the dining room on the first floor. We have a nice closet in here. At the time, people didn't have a lot of stuff, and so the closets were a lot smaller in these spaces. So that would have to get expanded in some capacity. But we have a gas line in there that goes and feeds the fireplace. So that's something nice. We can actually place a gas insert instead of having to reline or reconstruct a masonry fireplace. We also have a sink in the corner. Because this is a home that was built at the turn of the last century, there wasn't a lot of indoor plumbing that was installed into these homes. And so while we have 1 bathroom, we do have a sink. Around that sink, we have a lot of water damage on that floor. That's that dark staining. Now, it's hard to say if that was because of a water leak or if that was just because of splashback from somebody using that sink, but it is something to keep in mind. As we pan across the room, we'll see on the left-hand side of our bay window, there's a lot of water damage, and that's indicative on the floor. It's actually basically gone. And that leads me to believe that there's been water that's coming down from the roof and landing in that corner in some capacity. I'm sure that that plaster in that corner had been fixed. I also stopped the realtor before we leave the room because I'm trying to figure out if the electrical has been updated. She said some stuff has been and that the panel box has been in the basement, but these switches are indicative of some knob and tube, and at this point she informs me that only part of the house had been upgraded. So this is going to cause further investigation. At this point, I'm really starting to think that all of the plaster has to come out. We would probably have to survey all the millwork if we can't keep it in place, and then later pull all of that out and put it back in. Now we're going to go across the hall to the opposite bedroom. Now this bedroom also has a bay window, and this is where the drone kind of leads you towards that white bay on that right hand side of the house. And the realtor was telling me this is where major water damage was happening. I'm looking up at the right hand corner of that bay window, and what I'm seeing here is the ceiling just pulling apart, and that really is indicative of that water damage. It's interesting to note that both bay windows in the same relative corner, the front half of the house, or at least the front facing corner of that bay window, has been where that water damage was. This side being far more worse than the other side. But I will say though, that when you look at the first floor of the home and you think, where's that water damage? It's in the similar areas. If we look at the kitchen, which is directly beneath this space, we'll see the servant stair entry, and all of that plaster has been peeled away. So water has been pouring through this corner, and it's been working its way all the way down to the first floor of this house. Another thing to point out is that all these windows are fiberglass replacements. And from my understanding, the homeowner purchased this in 2009. And at that time point, the roof was replaced and these windows were installed. I would say that one big thing would be to replace all of the windows in the house and make sure that we have something that's period correct. Making a right out of that room, we're headed down the hallway to the only bathroom in the house. Again, another window that would need to get replaced. Plumbing would probably all have to get replaced. We have an original clawfoot tub in there that's very cool characteristically, but it doesn't make any sense for this space. It's not utilitarian, and I'm sure it's been leaking because of the condition that that butler pantry's in. We also have an original transom in that space, and it's the only space or only room that has a transom window above it. My guess would be this is because it's acting as a rudimentary vent system for that bathroom. Headed out of the bathroom, up on the left-hand side of the wall, you'll see a breaker switch, and I'm assuming this is for the old knob and tube system. We've got 2 more bedrooms on this floor. To the right, we have this other bedroom. It looks like there's a lot of water damage around the fireplace here and in the closet. This one almost as big as our master bedroom, but it doesn't have a sink. As we pan up with the drone, we'll see that the chimney is in rough shape. We have some flashing around that chimney and the roof line, which is good because that's what prevents water from working its way into the brick, but I'm not sure how well it's working because as we look down, we can see that the woodwork around the gutter is actually kind of falling apart. And then when we look further down, we have a lot of staining. So that would lead me to believe that either this brick is still wet or it's just dirty from water just soaking it over time. Panning back over to the right, all we're seeing here is the closet and just how deteriorated it is. The plaster has just pulled all off of that wall, and you can see the lath underneath it. The lath is a little deteriorated. We can't really see the structure up underneath that. As we pare back and we pull all of that away, we'll get to understand what the structure or the underlying structure looks like. As I pan to the front of the room here and I'm looking out the front windows, I'm noticing that flat roof. That green patina is also a copper roof. Think the Statue of Liberty, as I brought up earlier. This is patinaed over time to that green hue. We also have those integrated box gutters here as well. And I wouldn't be surprised if this roof leaked as well. It looks like it's already pooling in that left side of the porch. And as we viewed the porch front earlier, we could see a lot of that falling in. I'm sure this is leaking, and it's also leading me to believe that this is gonna have to be restructured. Just off of that bedroom is another room. It's much smaller than the other two, and this one would lead me to believe it's a nursery just because of its proximity to the other room and because of the passage between the two. And as we look out onto the porch here, we can really see where that water's settling, and I can almost guarantee you that that is leaking and causing the deterioration of that porch roof. Before we head upstairs, our realtor here is showing me where the servant stair is. I think that's a great feature. You could always do a hidden door or a bookshelf in that space and in the kitchen, so you can have a secret passage to some effect. Now heading upstairs, I can already tell there's a lot of damage. The stairs themselves were weak, boards were coming up, and we're missing a lot of the balustrade coming up. Also, beware, this is the stuff of nightmares. It's starting to look like a horror film, something out of Saw or Scream Queens. It's pretty eerie, but when you come up to the top, it opens up and it's actually finished. So I'm going to have to be absolutely real here. This is probably gonna have to be completely gutted. As we move through these other rooms, we're noticing plasters just peeling completely away, and we even have whole swaths of the roof line that just have no plaster. We have exposed brick, which I'm assuming is not from construction efforts, but rather from water damage. So we look at the chimney above the roof line, we're noticing a lot of problems with the water. And because of that, I would believe that water's worked its way all the way down through the house and really blown this plaster out. I don't think this is from construction efforts from the previous owner. And as we look through the rest of the house, we're noticing there's all kinds of damage here. But one redeeming factor is that we do have water up here. We have plumbing because there's a sink in the corner, and there's another bedroom that also has a sink. And so it's leading us to believe that these rooms were probably servants' quarters at one point, but can be retrofit into a bathroom and maybe a second master suite up on this level. We're basically looking at an entire gut of this floor. I don't know if I have a good shot of this, but we also have gas lanterns that are hybrid electric. At the turn of the last century, lighting was not quite so bright and it wasn't quite as efficient or reliable. So they were pairing electric lamps with gas lamps. So you'll see a little bit of a J, and you'll have a gas outlet on one side and an electric socket for the bulb on another side. It's very interesting. And I would assume that these are original to the home. We have another sink here in this room. It's just completely deteriorating. Out the window here on the third floor, we can see that box gutter and the condition it's in. It's kind of just gathering dirt and debris in there. We head into the last room here, and right away, the realtor points out to me that the wall has been removed because of water damage from the chimney and just how deteriorated that is. It's leading me to believe that we're gonna have to get in there and possibly restructure some stuff, but I don't know how intense that would end up being. All of this room would end up getting gutted the same way. I would try to save the millwork and hopefully reuse that, because you're not gonna get the same profiles or the quality of that woodwork ever again. Again, it's just in bad shape. I don't know what else to say about that one. As we leave the house, I want to address that right-hand side of the home one more time, because I'm curious as to how that water is actually affecting the house. On the right-hand side here, we have a lot of staining that goes all the way up and hits that eave. Now, the gutter corresponds with all that staining, so I'm believing that this is all water damage. That porch roof is deteriorating in its own right. It's also a copper roof and it's also flat. As we pan across and pan up, we'll see that the woodwork on the bay window seems original, so that's nice to see. It hasn't been replaced with aluminum flashing or anything like that. And we also have more vinyl windows that need to be pulled and removed. We have smaller windows by the stair location, which is nice because those look original and we can use those as templates to recreate the original windows for the rest of the house. house. As we look to the left there, we also see some cracking in the foundation that's moving its way up to the rest of the brickwork on the house. It kind of goes quickly to the left at a 45-degree angle. But as we look up the face of the house on the front, especially in the brickwork that's directly above the window for that nursery that we looked at, that brickwork is actually almost all peeling off the house. We also get a better look at the porch. It no longer is supported directly to the house. They have blocks stacked up. So that porch is also going to have to be completely repaired or removed and just restructured. Now that we've finished walking through the home and assessing it for its structural stability and the condition it's in, we're going to scan the whole home with an app called Canvas. We have that right here on the iPad, and that allows us to create a digital twin of this home. We can then measure all the spaces. This isn't sponsored content, but it is an app that I really do use on a regular basis, and I have seen tremendous results with. We can even have this digital twin of the home sent off to Canvas, and they will create a 3D model for us to use in creation of our architectural drawings. We specifically use Revit, but sometimes we've used SketchUp for this process. Once they send us back that Revit model, we can create architectural drawings with that and still view the home in 3 dimensions. It's a really handy tool. But if you don't want to go that far, you can actually take point measurements from this, which is what we're planning on doing, because I don't want to have to pay for an additional model if we're not going to be moving forward on this project. And so being able to measure certain areas and understanding the total square footage is very important. So this is also how we found out that this is a 3,400 square foot home. I believe Canvas touts the accuracy of their product between 1% and 2%, which is absolutely perfect for a residential project like this. We finished up our first site visit and we're on our way to our second site visit, and I just want to recap with you what we did while we were there. We walked through the entire house with the realtor. We got a sense of what the home was and the condition it was in. There's a lot of quirks in that house. It was built in the late 1800s. The realtor had it listed as early 1900s, but I don't think that's right. The quality of the build, the materials, and the style of the home really it makes me think that it was a late 1800s build. Either way, it's well over 100 years old, and it shows. They had integrated copper gutters, and a lot of that was leaking, and it was destroying the facade, the brick on the home. So that's going to be really expensive to redo and rebuild. So what we really try to do is get a sense of what the condition of the home was, how many rooms, what the size of the rooms were, and then we scanned the entire space with Canvas. So we now have a 3D model of that home that we can then send out to have them build out a Revit model for us, and it gives us an accurate scan of that home. So now we know that's 3,400 square feet. It's borderline that mansion size. It's got 3 bedrooms upstairs. We've got 3 bedrooms on the first floor, on the second floor, a bathroom on that second floor, and then just a really nice woodwork throughout. It's a very beautiful home. If you guys found this video entertaining, enlightening, or enjoyable, hit that like button for us. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button too, because we got plenty of other architectural videos on this channel that you're going to enjoy. And if you can think of anybody else that might enjoy this video or just want to see an old house, share this video with them too, because I'm sure they're going to like it. And stay tuned for part 2, where we go and we check out this site for a home that we're going to start construction with. We just had that lot cleared, and I'm sure you're going to actually find that one enjoyable as well. We'll see you in the next video.